Welcome back to my channel, guys. This is a spontaneous video. I was not planning on making this video, but I found out about this on Reddit yesterday and thought, I gotta talk to my YouTube people about this. I gotta talk to my community because there was a lot of content on Reddit about this yesterday. Love Reddit because you find out these things, these niche, uh, what's the word? Niche topics of interest. Is that the phrase? And I even posted about it on Reddit yesterday. And the post went, Mariah Carey's fans are hardcore. Mariah Carey's fans are intense. So my post got a lot of reactions, some positive, some negative, some neutral. I figured I got to bring this to the YouTube because I'm sure some of my subscribers will find all of this just as interesting. So let's get right into it. Before I jump into it, apologies if the lighting is kind of wonky throughout this video. This happens sometimes when I make videos around this time. This is a spontaneous video while the iron is hot with this story. But please do tell me in the comments if you find this stuff distracting when it happens. Uh, the little spottiness of it kind of looks cool too. But anyhow, I found out on Reddit yesterday that a version of Mariah Carey's original demo, this is her demo pre-record deal, but the demo that ultimately got her record deal that catapulted her into success, right? Mega success. This is a cassette demo. Okay. This is cassette days, late 80s, pre CD, post vinyl, but pre CD cassette tape. A version of her original demo that includes songs that ended up on her first album, including number one hits, songs that became her first hits. A version of this demo was auctioned off for about $50,000. 50K. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and yet my first thought, and I'm curious, so curious, of course, throughout this video, any thoughts you have, I want to know. Do you agree with this first impression that I had? My first impression was 50K is a lot of money, but I actually thought it would be worth more. And I beat myself up for about 2 minutes because I honestly thought to myself, like, maybe I should have bid on this. I mean, I don't know that I would pay more than 50K. I'm not rolling in dough, but I could move some savings around, basically empty out savings, and I would buy Mariah Carey's demo. And let me tell you why. Because that is a true investment. Like, I believe more in the value of that demo, especially because there's only a handful in existence. Nobody even knows like who has the others. Do people have the others? Like, nobody knows. Mariah Carey has even said she doesn't have it and would like it. So to me, that's an investment that you hold on to and then you sell it to Mariah's team or some industry veteran or just somebody who has a lot of money. Like, I see that as an art piece where you buy it thinking years later, I will sell this for a lot more money. Frankly, I believe in that as an investment more than a lot of like the stocks that I own. So I beat myself up for a few minutes because I remember hearing this auction was going to happen literally like a week or two ago. I heard about it somewhere, social media, Reddit, somewhere. And I thought, oh, maybe I should bid. And then I just, it was a fleeting thought. I didn't look into it. And I, again, assumed it would go for a crazy, crazy amount of money. But now I'm like, damn, 50K is a lot of money, but it's not that much money. I mean, I could see Mariah's team for the 40th anniversary of her debut album, which is only in a few years. Her first album came out in 1990. So that's 30, wait, what year is it? That's 30 something years ago. So the 40th anniversary will be in a couple of years. That would be a really smart publicity or marketing move for her to celebrate by listening to the original demo that got her record deal for the first album. Do you see where I'm going with this? Like, even for the person who bought this demo, and who knows, maybe it was Mariah's team. Who knows? Maybe it was a rep on behalf of her. Who knows? But that was my next thought was, oh, the 40th anniversary is coming up. That would be a really good time to sell this demo. In fact, Arthur Baker, who sold the music producer who sold this demo, who auctioned it off, I was like, Arthur, you probably should have just waited a couple of years. The 40th anniversary is coming up. So I was thinking about all these themes, right? Like, wow, how cool, that demo is a part of Mariah Carey's folklore, If you're not familiar with the origin story of Mariah Carey, she had this cassette demo of songs that she wrote, including number songs that ended up on her album and became number one hits like Vision of Love. I believe Someday, her song Someday is also on this demo. By the way, I looked up the auction page to see if it would list which songs were on there, and all it said was 7 songs, including 5 songs that ended up on her first album. So basically, half the album is on this demo, and 2 previously unreleased songs. This cassette demo, the whole folklore, the whole story of this demo is Mariah Carey in the late 80s was this teenage girl from Long Island trying to get her big break. She goes to this industry party with her friend Brenda K. Starr, who she sang backup for. Brenda K. Starr had a big hit with the song I Still Believe in the late 80s, if you're familiar with that song. Anyway, Brenda K. Starr was that friend that we all want to have, that good friend that's looking out for us. And I guess Brenda was going around handing demos of Mariah to industry people saying, like, you got to listen to this girl. One of those people was Arthur Baker, the music producer, who then, as I mentioned, now auctioned off his version of the demo. By the way, Arthur Baker, kudos to you for preserving that demo for all these years. Smart guy, smart man. You still should have waited till the 40th anniversary, but smart guy, and good on him to keep it presumably in pristine condition, because to sell it after all these years for that much amount of money, I'm assuming the tape still works perfectly and you can hear all those songs. He did actually release a snippet online to kind of promote it, and it sounded amazing. Like, you would never think this is from a cassette that is literally decades old. Anyway, so he got a version. Tommy Mottola famously got a version at this industry party, and that's where this whole origin story, the folklore of Mariah Carey, the Cinderella story that Tommy Mottola, who later became her husband, and he was the patriarch of her career in the beginning, he popped this demo into the limo on the way home, was amazed by what he heard, raced back in the limo to the industry party. Mariah was already gone. He tracked her down, and the rest is history, right? It catapulted her into mega, mega success. As I mentioned, that demo literally turned into part of her first album, which was a huge success. So this demo is like kind of a big deal in the story of Mariah Carey, but also like pop culture, American music history, I guess we can say. I mean, she's one of the best-selling female artists of one of the best-selling artists of all time, period. And a lot of sources say she's the best-selling female artist in terms of record sales. The reason I say some sources is that for whatever reason, all these sources always have a different way of measuring sales, which shows you that it's kind of a finicky system. If these sources, whether it's Billboard, whether it's what is it called, the not RCA, that was the record label, RICA, it'll come back to me later, but that the Recording Academy, whatever, that tracks album sales in the States, they're the ones who will say, like, this album went 3 times platinum, this album went diamond, which means 10 million copies sold in the US, gold, and so on, those certifications. All these sources have a different, I guess, way of acknowledging who sold how many. So that already tells you, like, it's kind of bizarre. But the point is, we do know that demo led to uh, the beginning of this meteoric rise of a recording artist who's now this, like, global superstar. So no matter how you look at it, that demo is worth significant monetary value. I should have bid on that demo, because this is what I would do if I bought that demo, right? I would then pimp it out on social media. Like, I would pop it in, do a little listening party live with the lambs. That's what Mariah Carey's fans call themselves, the lambs. But think about it. You hype it up on social media. You give people a taste of how it sounded. Those videos will go viral. And then you tease that you're going to resell it at the 40th anniversary of, and let's say you don't want to wait till the 40th anniversary. How about the 40th anniversary of the tape itself? That way you buy yourself a couple of years. or rather, you don't have to wait a couple more extra years. I guess this tape was from 1988. So What are we now? We're almost in 2026 at the time of this video. Just wait a couple years. That's what I would do. I would tease it, and then you could get really clever. If the person who bought the demo is watching, please listen. I'll be here all day with tips for you. But like, this is what I would do. I would also maybe create like a paywall situation, like a Patreon situation, or I would use YouTube membership as I currently do, so that fans would have to pay to listen to the full version of a song on the demo. People would pay for that. So I would make a quick buck that way, and then I would resell it. I'm so mad at myself. I should have literally spent my life savings to buy this demo. So that's the immediate kind of news item that I wanted to talk about. This demo, this infamous demo, the value of it. By the way, I pictured myself like, can you imagine buying something like that and then being terrified to use it or to like break it somehow? I mean, this is a cassette. Like even CDs, I remember CDs would get scratched and then it would skip. Remember, like if you're of a certain age, basically if you're a millennial or older, you remember this. A CD scratch, that meant a song would skip, but it was still like workable. It was just like a cringe moment, when that skip would happen, when you would hear the CD scratch moment. But like a tape, I remember cassette tapes, like if the tape got messed up, like it was a nightmare. At least that's my recollection as a child. That if the cassette tape gets screwed up, you are screwed. So just imagine this $50,000 demo arrives at your house and you're like, I would be terrified to even play it, right? Like I also hope the person who bought it made sure to get Arthur Baker on video, like playing it first to make sure it's actually in working condition. That would be my biggest concern. Before I dive into the next topic related to this, let me know down below in the comments your thoughts on all of this. Do you agree that you're shocked it only went for 50K? I mean, yes, 50K is a lot of money, but again, I feel like this is a part of like American music, pop sensation, history and folklore. Like this is like memorabilia, and it's not just like an outfit she wore once or something. This is like a piece of an iconic story of one of the best. And I'm saying this objectively, okay? This is not me, the fan of Mariah Carey. This is me as somebody with some basic business acumen. That's all I'm saying. I'm curious what you guys think. Now, that's the news item that I discovered on Reddit yesterday. But then I continued to go down the rabbit hole, and I discovered that Arthur Baker, the music producer who sold this demo, he interviewed Brenda K. Starr, who is the singer that I mentioned that Mariah was friends with and that Mariah sang backup for in the late 80s. And Brenda, well known, well documented, she helped Mariah. She made this intro with Tommy Mottola. You could say it was serendipity, you could say it was fate, but Brenda was a part of that story, right? And so there's an interview from literally, I want to say like 2 weeks ago at the time that I'm making this video, of Arthur interviewing Brenda. Now, I love that song, I Still Believe. I Still Believe. I like both versions. I like the Mariah version. I like the Brenda K. Starr version. The Brenda K. Starr version is very, very 80s, and I like it for that reason. It has like a nostalgic sound. And the Mariah version is much more late 90s. It's much more contemporary sounding, and it's very Mariah, with the vocal rasp and the vocal acrobatics. And there's just two completely different versions of the same song. Where was I going with this? Oh, I was going to say I love the song, but like otherwise I don't like follow Brenda K. Starr's career, but I was very curious about what she had to say in this hour-long interview on YouTube, because again on Reddit people were saying like, ooh child, like Brenda, somebody said this interview didn't do Brenda any favors. So I was like, I have to listen. And I listened to the entire thing, the entire 1 hour interview. Now, most of it was Brenda talking about her origin story in the music business and her path. But about halfway through, it starts to be about, this infamous story of the party in the late 80s and the Mariah Carey introduction to Tommy Mottola. And Brenda kind of like unravels. And it's really raw to watch, and it's very emotional, and she tears up. And if you're not familiar with this aspect of the story, The Clip Notes version is Brenda made that intro, right? Brenda basically helped Mariah Carey get her start in that specific way. Who's to say Mariah wouldn't have made it some other way, right? But the reality is, Brenda is a part of that story. And Brenda, over the years, has gone from being very supportive of Mariah Carey to at times sounding very bitter that she was kind of like dismissed as a friend, meaning Mariah Carey became this huge star and Brenda K. Starr felt that she was kind of left in the dust. Now, I don't know that she's used those words. That is my interpretation of some of the things she said. And some of the things she said have been shady over the years and unbecoming. But I completely get the idea of like, you feel like you helped a friend out because you wanted to, and then now you feel like that friend kind of abandoned you when you needed them or when they could have helped you. So I get it. I understand that perspective, but the Mariah Carey fans go in on Brenda K. Starr. Some of them are brutal. You know how it is with these parasocial relationships. I mean, I experienced this with my channel too. People think they know me and they will get emotionally invested to a point that feels more than uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to say dangerous, but I've received some messages sometimes. I receive emails where people are talking to me like they know me and they feel entitled to tell me everything that's wrong with me or what I need to do. Anyway, so I can't imagine on Mariah Carey's level, like, these are people who grew up with Mariah Carey as part of the soundtrack of their lives, right? So they feel like they know her and they feel a need to protect her. And there's being a fan and then there's being a fanatic, right? I mean, the word fan comes from fanatic, if I'm not mistaken. And so some of her fans are hardcore and they have jumped, to use a street term, they have jumped Brenda K. Starr. I mean, even on the Reddit post that I put up yesterday, somebody called her Brenda Kmart. Like, that is so stupid and juvenile. So I would not want to switch positions with Brenda because it's like, clearly this whole situation hurt. There's hurt there, and anytime she speaks up, people drag her on social media. So anyway, to circle back to this interview, it's the first time that I have ever really heard her story and her side of this thing with Mariah. And I want to talk about it because I find it so interesting. I feel like so many of my videos on here are sort of dissecting the nuances of relationship dynamics and this idea of like, is this right? Is this wrong? Or is it really just about perspective? Is it really just about one's perception versus another's? And so in this interview, which I'll put it in this video's description box for those of you who want to watch it and who are curious. It's actually really, it kind of becomes a therapy session where you can tell that she is just like, still she's distraught that many years ago she did something really pure out of the kindness of her heart, and she feels like, again, that she got left in the dust. And apparently a few years into Mariah Carey's huge success, Brenda lost everything. Like, she lost her record deal and she was told that she was getting dropped because the priority had to be Mariah now. So imagine that. Like, it's one thing to get dropped while your friend's becoming really successful, but to be told that, like, well, it's partially because we got to focus on her, the girl that you brought into us. That's got to be devastating. And so in this interview, she talks about how then she went to Mariah and asked for help. And Mariah was like, what am I, indebted to you? One of those things, right, where you can understand both perspectives of Mariah by that point was already probably starting to become, a cash cow for people in her life. And she's talked about this in her book, Mariah's autobiography, which I think I made a video about when it came out many years ago. If I can track it down, I'll put it up here for those of you who are curious. But in that video, she talks about how her family has exploited her forever, financially and in other ways, emotionally, mentally. So I totally get how Mariah would probably be defensive about feeling like somebody wants something from her. I don't remember if it was in a book. in the book or in an interview, but I remember Mariah Carey saying the only person close to her who's never asked for money, who's never asked for anything, was her father, who she had a strained relationship with her whole life, ironically. So I can imagine she probably is used to being on the defense when somebody she cares about tries to take money, tries to take advantage, tries to get something from her, and so on. But I also completely understand Brenda K. Starr's perspective. Like, it's, you guys, if you watch this interview, and if you've already watched it, please let me know in the comments below. I want to hear your take. Or go watch it after this and come back and tell the class, tell the group, because it's really heartbreaking to watch somebody talk about feeling betrayed by somebody that they helped out. And by it's also just so relatable, right? Like, haven't you had an experience like that where you really looked out for a coworker, a lover, a friend, and then that person didn't reciprocate when you kind of needed help? This reminds me of a story from when I was a kid. My grandmother would tell me this story about how she was on a train once, a long train ride, and she gave chocolate that she had to this family. I think it was a German family, either German or Swiss family. I want to say they were German. She gave them chocolate and they were like, oh, thank you, blah, blah, blah. They're all eating this chocolate. And then the family brings out food and they didn't share any of it with my grandmother. And my grandmother would tell this story with so much like bitterness of like, can you believe that they didn't even share any food with me, even though I shared my chocolate with them? And it was just like so petty, you know, but it left an impression of her on how, again, you can do things for people out of the kindness of your heart and then they don't reciprocate. And for me, the lesson of that story was always that my grandmother didn't see it this way, but this was my takeaway as a child, was like, she's focused on the wrong priority, because when you do something out of the kindness of your heart, that's where it should stop. Like, that was the intention and you leave it there. But if you expect something in return, or something like that happens where you see the opportunity for reciprocation and then you're upset that it was not reciprocated, then that's like not the right intention. That means that you did not actually come from a place of kindness. You were coming from a place of, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. And so I think all this is kind of like philosophical. I think a lot of us do nice things hoping that person would do it for us. But if you're really doing it out of the kindness of your heart, you got to just leave it there and not expect another person to do the same thing for you. But is it heartbreaking when you experience that? Absolutely. Is it even more heartbreaking when you go to that person asking for help and they don't help? Because it's one thing to lack the self-awareness to offer food back, like on that train with my grandma, right? It's a whole other thing to to ask for help of some kind, or to ask for a favor and the person doesn't return the favor. So I find this whole story between Brenda K. Starr and Mariah Carey, I find it fascinating. And it's also, to me, a part of this folklore of Mariah's origin story. It kind of reminds me of the Diana Ross story of like, Diana Ross had to push some people aside to get to where she got. And it's part of her story, and it's part of what makes her intimidating and has alienated a lot of people from her, and made people feel like she's a diva and not necessarily a nice person. And I think a lot of people have that sentiment about Mariah. And I think this interview from Brenda K. Starr also paints Mariah as somebody who maybe isn't as gracious as Brenda was to her. And Brenda is that like singer who got kind of dismissed to the side. But at the same time, again, two sides to every story. And one thing that you'll always find if you do your research is Mariah Carey has never said one negative thing about Brenda K. Starr. And even when it's been brought to her attention that Brenda has said some things that were maybe unsavory, Mariah has always taken the approach, which is the approach she took in her book, from what I recollect, the approach of, that girl, Brenda, looked out for me at a time where I was on my own and she didn't have to do that. A lot of singers in that position, a lot of stars wouldn't have done that. So I will never forget what she did for me. And again, I used the word grace earlier, the idea of being gracious or lacking grace. that's a pretty gracious thing to do, to not even get involved with the drama and um, just always have a kind thing to say. And so to circle back on Brenda, the interview was not negative. It wasn't toxic. It wasn't combative. She was really just speaking her truth, her experience, and you can tell she's still really hurt about it. And she, throughout these clips, she's saying, I have nothing but love for her. I've moved on from it. I look back fondly on those times. I feel like I'm a part of a music history that I helped her get her start. But you can tell that it's also her trying to like come from a place of gratitude versus bitterness. So it's still a work in progress, and I don't blame her, because here's the thing about fame that is bizarre, just like the parasocial relationship thing I mentioned earlier. Imagine you're Brenda K. Starr, right? And this is your like ex bestie from forever ago. Every Christmas, Brenda's at the supermarket and she has to hear "All I Want for Christmas Is You." Every time it's Christmas time, she turns on the TV and she sees a headline about Mariah Carey. It must be really traumatizing for people who have beef with celebrities, whether it's a falling out, whether it's like the Harvey Weinstein situations, the Bill Cosbys, the R. Kellys, like Diddy, right? It must be so triggering that like you can't escape these people. Whereas in the real world, right, when you have a falling out with a friend, when a boss does something inappropriate and then you either get fired or you quit, eventually you have more room to get over something, because it's like you're distanced from it physically, emotionally. It's like a different time in your life. But imagine you're Brenda K. Starr and this ex friend who you feel kind of wronged you or slighted you or whatever. You have to keep seeing her around. You have to keep hearing her for the rest of your life. Like, that's some heavy shit. So these are the things that I've been thinking about in the past 24 hours. Uh, this is going to be a long video. Ooh. If you made it this far, I'm impressed. I thank you for listening to my rants. I know I can be verbose, but I also feel like I make sure to mention every detail that could be pertinent. I'm curious what you think about this. And please, if you're a Mariah Carey lamb, no hate in the comments towards me, towards Brenda. Like, just share your opinion without being a troll. Okay? I don't want this to be like some of the Reddit posts I saw yesterday, including my own. I'm just I'm just the messenger. Okay? I'm just here to tell the story. There are two sides to every story. But I will say that interview was very moving, and smart of Arthur Baker that he did this interview presumably to help hype up the sale of this infamous demo, because Brenda's a part of that story, right? So I'm assuming he did this interview on purpose to hype up the auction. And boy, was that an auction, because 50K is a lot of money. But I'm curious what happens next to that demo. They have not mentioned who bought it. I'm assuming that stuff stays anonymous unless the person wants to say who they are. But I'm hoping that person is business savvy and will really turn that investment into uh, future opportunity. And that's it for my take, guys. I have more videos. As I mentioned, I have a couple of videos left for this year, and then I have some ideas for next year. So I will catch you soon, and happy holidays until then.